I think it was just ingrained, from the beginning that, hey, this is tough. And I went 9 elk seasons before I killed my first elk. So I think I was 20 or 21 when I killed my first elk. I was a junior in college. I had already won, I think, 2 world elk calling championships, 2 or 3 world elk calling championships, and had never killed an elk. So, there's a little bit of motivation there that, and if this title's ever going to mean anything, I better start putting some proof behind it.
Welcome to the Mountain Tough Podcast, brought to you by Sig Sauer. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mountain Tough Podcast. We are so glad that you are here, diving into these episodes week after week. It is our goal to bring you the best of the best, inspiring guests each week that give you those tools in your toolbox to live that virtuous, abundant life. If you're a brand new listener or a loyal listener and you haven't left a ranking or review wherever you get your podcasts, if you could do that, that means a ton to us. It means a ton to me and the Mountain Tough team. Also, with the algorithm, it does help get these episodes out to more people so that we can inspire, transform, and change more lives. Latest events around Mountain Tough, there has been a lot of buzz around the Mountain Strength program. So if you are in a strength training window in this wintertime season, make sure you check out Mountain Strength. Mountain Strength was co-created with us, the Mountain Tough team, and Donnie Bigham. Donnie is a multiple world record holder in squat, bench, and deadlift at a body weight of 180 pounds. He is an absolute beast, and we worked with him last year to bring you all a strength program that you can bring your strength up to baseline for a functional hybrid athlete that's looking to dominate the backcountry, the mountains, or your military career. It's a program that you're definitely going to want to add in the off season. So if you haven't checked that out yet, make sure to check out Mountain Strength. And remember, with the Mountain Tough app, you can download it wherever you find apps. So it's going to be available on iPhone, Android, Amazon, Roku, and it's going to start everyone on a 14-day free trial. So open that up and check out the Mountain Strength program if you're looking to get your strength up to baseline in this off season. Transitioning now over to today's guest. This was a fun, phenomenal conversation for me, one that I've been waiting a long time to have. Today, I sit down with Corey Jacobson. Corey is one of those guys that really does not need an introduction to the hunting community. 11-time world elk calling champion, creator of Elk 101. But if you know Corey, or if you've heard him talk before, if you've followed him on YouTube or social media, you know not only does he have a long resume in the elk hunting world, he's also one of the nicest guys on the planet. And the conversation today is mind-blowing when you learn how many difficulties health-wise Corey has gone through to chase his passion for elk hunting. It really breaks it down to you can do whatever you want to pursue your dreams, and Corey's going to share that story today. And no matter the obstacles that come in your way, whether they're health, financial, family, you can still find a way to adapt and overcome and pursue your destiny for life, leave a legacy. None of these things are going to stop you, and Corey's going to break down how he did that today. It is an inspirational story you are not going to want to miss. So stand by for my conversation with Corey Jacobson. I was really curious on what your childhood actually looked like, and how much hunting you were doing, and what your parents were up to, and kind of how you were raised. Where did you grow up at?
So I grew up in a tiny little logging community in kind of north central Idaho. And my dad was a logger. My mom stayed at home, and we lived probably 17 miles from the nearest town. And that town was just a small, 2,000 people. But where we lived, there was a small little one-room schoolhouse that had one teacher, and first through sixth grades went there. There were about 15, 16 kids in the school. So definitely almost Little House on the Prairie. Like, you don't see many one-room schoolhouses still functioning today. But there were a lot of benefits to that. We were kind of sheltered and shielded from the city, which the city wasn't much to speak of, but the outdoors were our backyard. And so, we rode two-stroke motorcycles to school some days. We rode snowmobiles to school in the winter. The bus was just a little tiny bus that usually ran about an hour late because there was so much snow, and the only snowplow driver was the bus driver also. So he would have to usually run and plow the roads before he could get the bus there to pick us up. So it was a small community, which was awesome. And then, like I said, we would leave school, and on the way home, we could hunt for white-tailed deer. We could hear elk bugle, from our house. And so it definitely got me, my dad and my mom both hunted, so we were into that naturally. But then living in that environment gave us the opportunity to just be immersed in it from a super young age.
Wow, that is wild. That's awesome. And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I have just one sister.
Okay. And was your dad a logger for a while?
He was. In fact, he logged until I think he quit logging when I was probably about a senior in high school, and transitioned full-time into outfitting about the same time he started a call company, and started doing that while he was also outfitting, and then transitioned into just running the call company full-time.
And how did that look for you as a kid when your dad started the elk call company? Were you helping out and diving into working there a little bit?
No, not at all. It was basically him sitting in an easy chair with a TV tray next to him with a whole bunch of metal frames and latex and a thing of glue and some tape, and just assembling diaphragm calls literally in our living room every night while we watched TV or whatever we were doing. But yeah, it started out literally in the living room, with very small overhead and not a lot of customers. And he dabbled with, he built diaphragm calls, I would say probably mid to late 80s he was making them, not at all on a commercial scale. And then I think it was sometime early 90s, 92 somewhere, that he started the company and started selling diaphragm calls.
And how long did he do that before he was able to make that his full-time career?
Ooh, I don't remember, probably 6, 7 years, and it was close to full time the whole time. It's one of those things when you're an entrepreneur or have a side hustle.
Yeah.
A lot of times you spend full-time hours working on it in addition to your actual full-time employment.
For sure. And when you were in your youth, I imagine you were doing a lot of elk hunting around that hometown and spending a lot of time in the hills and in the backcountry.
Yeah. So my dad was an outfitter, so he's gone, the last week of August through the end of September. And so before I could drive, it was my mom that would drive me out and drop me off and wait there at the truck until dark, and I'd come back with a pocket full of lessons learned and not a whole lot of elk being killed when I was young, for sure. But yeah, we were fortunate. We could drive 5 miles, 6 miles from our house and be into bugling elk. And then when we moved into town, which was 15, 16 miles from our original house, just so we could be closer to high school, and my mom was working at the time in town, it's still, we were able to be hunting elk within a 25, 30-minute drive. So
Man,
a lot of time spent chasing elk in middle school and high school for sure.
that's amazing. It's interesting because there's a lot of local legends that I know here in Bozeman, and a lot of legendary hunters that I know in Bozeman, and many of them have a similar connection point, and it's that when they were really young, their parents were dropping them off in the backcountry, and
Yep.
and they were hunting solo, and it's so funny because in today's modern age and with kids of our own, that sounds like a really scary, intimidating thing to do, to drop your kid at 12, 13, 14, 15 and let them hunt for 1 or 2 or multiple days on their own.
Yeah. And that was part of our motivation as parents to move to where we did. We live quite a ways out of town now. And, it just gave us the opportunity to expose our kids to not exactly the same lifestyle I had growing up, but something similar. And actually, there was a parent that called me a couple of years ago, and my youngest son, I think he was 14 or 15, he just got his driver's license, so he must have been 15. And he and a buddy went out and stayed the night and camped and turkey hunted the next morning. And this parent had heard about it and was all concerned that a 15-year-old is out camping on their own, and how safe is that? And I didn't think twice. I mean, yeah, obviously there's concerns, and he knows that there are rules, but I look back at my upbringing, and those opportunities are priceless to be a youth and to be able to be out there and learning, not that he's surviving by any means, but there's skills that you learn when you stay overnight by yourself that, hey, I've got to take care of this, and I've got to think about this and plan for this. And,
Yeah.
I think they're positive things for sure.
It's amazing how empowering it is, and how much confidence it gives you. My childhood was really similar, and I was very passionate about fishing and fly fishing. And I remember a handful of times my mom dropping me at this tiny little brown trout creek outside of Sheridan, Wyoming, and then just picking me up at the end of the day. And when you walk to the car where your parents are waiting and you've been out there all day by yourself, and I'd always bring a few fish home, and it's like you're so empowered and you have so much confidence. It's a really cool experience.
Totally. Yeah. Just the confidence it gives you to know that you've been out there on your own, and you're walking back, like you said, to your parents' vehicle. You almost feel like, look at me, I did this on my own. I made it, and I caught some fish. I was successful, and here I am still alive.
Yeah. I remember harvesting my first whitetail ever out of a tree stand with my bow. And my dad walked me through the process and had taught me a lot about it. And then there was a day where he couldn't join me in the tree stands, and I went alone. I was 13, and it was only a couple miles from our house. So I took one of our vehicles without a license, got in the tree stand, and I shot a doe with my bow. And I could not wait for my dad to get home, because I loaded her in the back of the car, did all the field processing myself, loaded her in the car, got home, and I just stood there in the driveway waiting for my dad. Yeah. It was like a highlight of my childhood.
Yeah. And you want to play it off cool, probably, let him see it on his own in the back of the truck. But if it was like me, it's like, come look what I got, immediately wanted him to be able to see that.
For sure. Well, I did want to shift slightly and dive into your mindset, Corey, because I know that not only in the backcountry you have a very strong mindset, you're pushing a lot of miles in the backcountry, and you've been on some extremely, extremely difficult hunts. But I also know that you've gone through tough stuff personally, health-wise, business-wise, and that mental fitness is so connected across all of those elements. But in your life, when did you start thinking about mindset or mental toughness even being a concept?
Yeah, and I don't know that there was ever a day or a time that I can look back on and say, I got it here. Like you got to be tough mentally if you want to do these things. I think, there was a lot of it that, being a first grader at 6 years old and having our driveway was probably, it was over a quarter mile long, and we had to be out at the end of the bus stop, before it was daylight. And so I had to learn to, not be scared of the dark
Mm-hmm.
and to walk that long walk in heavy snow in the winters. We'd easily get 3 or 4 feet of snow every winter. And, I'm trudging out there to the end and then waiting in the cold and the dark for the school bus to come. And, I can still remember there were times I'd stand up on the corner where I could still see the porch light from our house and I could see the bus stop, but I didn't want to go all the way to the bus stop because I'd lose vision, lose sight of the house there. And so, I can remember being scared and having to overcome that. So I think, the upbringing kind of, there were tough things we had to do just
Mm-hmm.
living out like that. And, no one came and plowed our road for us. And there were times that we used to, walk behind snowblower because the snow was too deep to plow the snow. So just little things like that I think get ingrained to you that, hey, nobody's going to come and bail you out. You've got to figure out how to do these things and how to make do. And then athletics probably was the start of it for me. I've told the story quite a few times, but there were 21 kids on our seventh grade basketball team and only 20 uniforms.
Mm.
And that meant I wore the silk track uniform at the end of the bench. I was number 21 out of 21 on the team
Mm.
and realized, what, I'm not blessed with a whole lot of athletic ability. So if I want to not wear a track uniform on the basketball team next year, I've got to work. And so that kind of started, a little bit of a working towards something and happened to overcome. Like I said, I was the slowest kid. I couldn't jump. I still, I have to work at physical fitness and being athletic. And as I got into high school, my sophomore year, I was cut from the JV team and had to play on the freshman team as a sophomore. And, things like that I could have easily quit and said, basketball's not for me.
Yep.
And I can remember, my coach sitting down and saying, hey, listen, I think if you got some more experience and playing time, it would benefit you. You probably aren't going to get a lot of playing time on the JV team. So we're going to put you on the freshman team. And they probably, back then, now they don't even call it a freshman team. They call it a JVB team because they didn't, there's enough sophomores playing on that team that they don't want to insult anyone or hurt anyone's feelings. But back then it was the freshman team, and a sophomore on it kind of
Yeah.
told you where your standing was in the pecking order. And I went home. I remember telling my dad, hey, I'm going to be on the freshman team again. He's like, why would you even want to play on the freshman team? And, for me, it was like, well, that's how I'm going to get better.
Yeah. It's
And so I
interesting.
took that opportunity and did improve. And then, in the off season, I can remember being the only person down at the local playground feeding quarters into the lights to keep the lights on at night to be able to shoot, and just by myself down there. And it paid off, and I ended up playing a little bit of college basketball. But that was kind of my motivation, is people saying, you're never going to play college basketball. You're never going to be on varsity in high school. You're never going to play college basketball, these things. And that kind of fueled me to gain probably more of a competitive nature than a lot of people have. And I think there's good and bad. Obviously, you've got to be competitive to succeed to some degree, but then there's also a fine line there that you don't want to cross. And I think I've probably been a little too competitive at different
Yep.
times and had to learn how to tone that back a little.
So a lot of that, it sounds like, was self-developed for you. Your parents or your father wasn't giving you a lot of kind of mental toughness guidance at that point. You were kind of creating this all on your own through your own circumstances.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us that grew up in our formative years were in the 80s. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of our parents weren't the coddling kind that gave everybody awards and said you can be anything you want to be. I think it was fairly normal that their motivation for us was you're never going to be good enough. You're not going to make it. Why would you waste your time with that? And looking back now, I can see, yeah, there was some of it that they were hoping I wouldn't stick with it. And the other part of it was, hey, you're going to have to be tougher than the people around you. So I'm going to tell you right now, you're not very tough, and you're probably not going to make it. To use as motivation to go out and learn to be tougher.
That tough love, yeah.
Yeah.
And did you notice some years where that determination and that ability to fight against someone telling you can't do something, and in that it sounds like your mental toughness toolbox is really heavy on the side of outwork, out practice, some competition. Did you notice a season where that really started applying to your hunting and your hunting career?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily directly, isn't like, hey, I'm just, I failed and failed and failed. I guess I'm going to have to start working hard. I think it was just ingrained, from the beginning that, hey, this is tough. And I went 9 elk seasons before I killed my first elk. So I think I was 20 or 21 when I killed my first elk. I was a junior in college. I had already won, I think, 2 world elk calling championships, 2 or 3 world elk calling championships, and had never killed an elk. So, there's a little bit of motivation there that, man, if this title's ever going to mean anything, I better start putting some proof behind it. But, I think I knew from the beginning, elk hunting's tough, not only physically tough, but just, you got to stick with it. There's going to be a lot of failure, and you've got to learn from those failures if you want to come back and be successful next time. So I think, when I was 12, 13, 14, I would take my bow out during rifle season in Idaho. Back then you could hunt all of archery season, which was all of September, with a bow. And then you could turn around October 10th and start hunting with a rifle through like the 1st of November, all on the same tag. So when everybody else was packing a rifle starting October 10th, I'd still be out there with my bow, wanting to kill an elk with a bow, and
crazy.
knowing that it would be easier probably to do with a rifle, but being determined that bow hunting was where it was at for me.
Always looking for some of those harder options.
Yeah. And I mean, then, now I think I would look at it and be like, okay, yeah, I want a challenge here, so I'm going to go and do it. Then it wasn't so much the challenge. It was just, I loved archery. Archery was, for me, besides basketball, archery was everything, and not just bow hunting, but, shooting a bow, going to tournaments, competing, all of that. And so I would come home from school when it wasn't basketball season, and I'd spend 2-3 hours sometimes every night shooting my bow, just 20 yards, 30 yards, repetitive, probably picking up more bad habits then than actually benefiting from it. But yeah, I mean, archery was, I loved archery. And so an opportunity to be able to carry my bow in the woods and hope to kill an elk with a bow, the rifle season just gave me another month to do that.
That's really cool, because it's really similar to putting more quarters in the lights so that you can get more reps on the court, just more practice than most people are doing.
Yeah. And you have to remember, I didn't kill an elk for 9 years. So it also gave me a lot more lessons to learn, a lot more failure to have to deal with over those first 9 years.
That's incredibly helpful too, because I was talking to Randy last week on Randy Newberg's podcast, and it was a very, very similar story where I think he went 6 years without killing an elk, and his wife was wondering, what is he doing? Why doesn't he switch hobbies? Maybe he should take up golf or something. And
are you truly going out hunting, or are you going somewhere else and just coming back empty-handed?
Yeah, where have you been? But I think that is the norm across all great hunters, is all great hunters, all hunters that stick with it. They go through this big season of failure and failure and failure, and learning from those failures, which ultimately, if they stick it out long enough, what truly lets them to be successful and turn into something great. But a huge component of that is kind of that never quit mentality.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think, there's way more that can be learned and should be learned in failure than in successes. And especially when you're starting out, a lot of times you see people go out their first year and they kill an elk and they're successful, but hopefully they understand there was probably a lot of luck involved. And they probably, when they're faced with some adversity on their next hunt, which, elk hunting, there's always adversity, whether it's physical challenge, whether it's a mental challenge, whether it's just overcoming Murphy's laws, which seem to be coming at you from every direction. When those happen and you haven't had that experience and you haven't been through and experienced failure, it's hard to know what to do in those situations. You're kind of left grasping for straws. So I think there's so much that can be learned from failure, whether it's in the setup or your physical conditioning. You fail too early and you tire out and you have to go home, or you take a few days off and you don't get to fully capitalize on all the opportunities you could have, or whether you tap out because you just mentally you're not there. I think those are important lessons to learn, and to forego failing in any endeavor. I think you're giving up a lot of opportunity to grow and to truly find what it takes to be successful.
For sure. And that is definitely a top 10 mindset tool that is well documented. And it is that viewpoint, that perspective of, can we look at failure as not a failure, but an option to learn? And that's been so helpful for me, not only in hunting, but in the creation of Mountain Tough. Is if I and our whole team can wrap our minds around that, we have to try things and we're going to fail, and we're going to fail all the time. But as long as we're learning along that whole journey, then they're truly not failures. It's just making us better. And a learn is a win. And so if we're learning, we're winning, not failing.
Totally. Yeah. The path to success is paved with thousands of failures, for sure.
I've used a ton of Bluetooth speakers over the years, and they all have never quite had enough output for me to really have an awesome home gym workout on a Bluetooth speaker. But the Turtle Box is in a whole new ball game. They have leveled up this product, so the bass and the output you get out of a Turtle Box is quite amazing. It's funny how we started using them at the lab. We had an awesome sound system at our new lab here in Bozeman. We were using it so much, we actually blew our brand new system out. We went right to the Turtle Boxes. And so we paired two together in the lab. And that was a lot of output for the Mountain Tough team and all of our testing to have phenomenal sound in our gym for a great workout with great music. We know there's a ton of Mountain Toughers training in their basements, in their garages. And I know a lot of you are looking for great sound to play some music in the background to your MGDs or your kettlebell diesel. This is a great product for you to check out. Turtle Box is at a whole new level. The bass and the volume you can get out of that box. It's a sweet product. You guys can check them out at turtleboxaudio.com. Again, that's turtleboxaudio.com. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. And Corey, you've been on some very hard hunts. You've been on many backcountry hunts, and some are, harder than others. And you and I have talked about your Alaska elk hunt previously.
How did I know that was going to come up?
Do you feel like that was the hardest trip you've ever been on?
Overall, from a mental standpoint, probably so. Just because it was grueling. I mean, the weather, the conditions were just horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't throw in a towel. There was no tap out button. There was no, hey, let's just go back and come back when the weather straightens up. We'd killed an elk on day one and spent the next 3 days, we were on day 4 before we got it packed out. We spent 3 full days packing.
Jeez.
And there's no way. Nobody can come pick us up. We're on a remote island that's a long ways from anything. Donnie was sick. He's in the tent, can't come help us pack. So it's just cameraman John and I packing. And Donnie's only option was to hit SOS and hope the Coast Guard could bring a helicopter and drop a line to get him out of there if he truly was going to tap out. There's no option. Nobody can come and bail you out. Nobody can come and help you pack out your elk. Nobody can come and save you from that. So, I think it goes back to, I don't know that I've ever known that quitting was an option in anything. And I know failure is an option, and failure is a part of anything we go after, but quitting before the job gets done has never been an option. And so that hunt probably tested that metal as much as anything, just because you get, the verticalness of where we were hunting. It was straight off. There were 2 times we literally, with loaded packs of elk meat, had to turn around and go straight back up because we cliffed out. And I don't know that we cliffed out. It was just so steep and so foggy that I couldn't see what was right below me. So I'm standing there holding on to a tree that, is vertical with me, the mountain's right back behind me there. And I don't know what my next step, if it's going to be 1,000-foot drop, or if there's something 3 feet underneath me I'm going to be able to secure my crampons into. So, it's that steep and that rugged, and you get down to the bottom with the first load and you find a way down and you're like, we've got to do this 3 more times.
Man, that's intense.
And it's solid downpour. It didn't let up raining for even a minute. Like it rained for 4 straight days. And I think they got 12 inches of rain in 5 days or something there. And so it just, it's one of those things that mentally you just have to lock in and say, if I stop moving for more than 5 minutes, I start shivering. Like it is that cold and I'm that wet that as long as I keep moving, I'm okay. But if I stop to eat, I've got 5 minutes and I've got to get moving again. And so then your mind starts saying, what if you break an ankle? What if you twist your knee? What if, all these things? We don't have camp on our back. It's not like I can just throw out a sleeping bag and climb in it and warm up. And so there's just a lot going on there, safety and discomfort and heavy loads and all these things that at the end, you look back on it, it's like, man, that was an adventure.
Yeah.
But when you're in it, it's almost step by step, minute by minute, that you're just coaching yourself, saying you don't have a choice. There's no option out. So you've got to just take another step and keep going.
And the size of those elk too was a whole nother element as well.
Yeah, it was, I've seen Roosevelt bulls before, and they're huge compared to our normal, even a big Rocky Mountain bull is nowhere near as big as a big Roosevelt bull. And then these ones in Alaska were just off the charts. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah,
I remember seeing those pictures. The body size is pretty mind-blowing on those things.
Yeah. Yeah, and just the amount of meat. I can remember, there were no trees, so we couldn't make a makeshift meat pole and hang quarters and then bone it out while it was hanging. We had to bone it out while it's there on the animal. And I can remember the first hind quarter, we got the skin all off, and I'm just starting to cut chunks of meat off of that hind quarter. And it just seemed to go forever. They have the same number of muscles and everything, but it just seemed like I was pulling meat off of it for 3 times as long as I normally would.
Yeah, that's crazy. I love how you talked about quitting not being an option and just taking that option off the table entirely, because that is huge. That is a huge principle that can be applied across all areas of life. I mean, business, marriage. I think as soon as that is just identified as that is just not an option, I'm going to plow through this. Probably fail, probably learn, but I'm not quitting. It actually in a way makes the mindset game quite a bit easier, because otherwise you have this battle going on in your mind of like, should I quit or not quit? We see it a lot of times in the lab. If you put someone through a very difficult workout, if you let them know that quitting is not an option, one way or another, we are going to get this workout done. That may take all day, or maybe 2 or 3 other people are going to need to jump in there and help you. But quitting is not an option. It kind of changes the whole game, because then you go into problem solving mode rather than fear and defeat mode.
Totally. Giving up is easy. Anybody can throw in the towel and just walk away and be done.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there's no consequence to that. And especially in today's world, I think that a lot of kids are being taught, hey, there's no consequence. If you don't like if something's not fun, you don't have to do it. And what a disservice that we're doing. As a basketball coach, I see it all the time that basketball practice isn't fun, so I'm not going to play anymore. Well, practice is never fun.
Mm-hmm.
It should never be fun. That's if it's fun, something. I mean, yeah, we can make it enjoyable to a degree, but I just see way too many of youth today that they don't even want to do something or don't want to look at something or have no ambition towards something unless it's fun. And they're missing out on so much because the real rewards usually aren't attached to things that are fun.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, once you realize that, hey, quitting isn't an option, like you said, it makes it easier mentally. I think, you have to put in a lot more effort to make it through it. But when you know it's not an option, I think the mental game does get easier.
Yeah.
And the mental game sometimes is a lot of people's worst enemy.
It is a big enemy. Yeah. Yeah. I think knowing yourself and working on yourself is a huge advantage on that mindset stuff.
Absolutely.
And Corey, you're coaching a lot of basketball now. You have been for a while. How did that start? And I'm really curious, like, what are some of the core principles that you focus on teaching the kids?
Yeah. So when I mentioned earlier, we moved up to where we live now, just to give our kids kind of that lifestyle. We did that when my oldest was going into high school. And so we just, first day of basketball practice, took him to the high school and went in to meet the coach. And turns out it was a guy that I played against in high school, and he was from a neighboring town, and he's the head coach there. And I just said, hey, if you ever need a hand with anything, let me know. I'm got kind of a flexible schedule and could help out with anything. And about a week later, he called and said, hey, were you serious about wanting to be involved? I'm like, sure, if you need help. So I started out coaching then. So it's been I think this is 7 or 8 years now I've been doing it. And I've seen even in that time the mindset change in some of the youth, as far as not being held to the same standards of accountability and sticking with it and being gritty.
Mm-hmm.
But even then we're dealing with 14, 15, 16-year-old boys whose brains are not anywhere near developed, and who also, a lot of them are given an easy button and can quit if things get hard. So one of the things, I love the one thing. I've always been super competitive, and the thing I have to remind myself is this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Like, I can't be competitive and want to win as a coach. I have to instill that in them, and they have to want it. No matter how badly I want it, my competitiveness isn't going to come through in a positive way as a coach.
Yeah.
So I have to help them understand the reward and have a desire and ambition to be successful. And one of the greatest things that I absolutely hope happens every year is we get beat, because there's so much that can be taught in those minutes in the locker room after losing a tough game.
Mm-hmm.
When, especially, we've got a good program. Our varsity team's been in the state championship 2 of the last 3 years. Our JV team that I coach has been, top 2 or 3 teams in the conference every year. So we've got a successful program, and sometimes the kids come in just expecting to win. And it can be a great teaching moment when they lose.
Yeah.
And the thing that I'm probably this team that I'm coaching now is probably the best team I've coached overall. There's been better players for sure, and maybe better opportunities, but this year I think we have a better chance of winning the championship than we've ever had, which, with, like I said, 15, 16-year-old boys, that doesn't mean anything. You get a different player and a different team that shows up every night. But the thing I keep telling them is, don't ever think we're better than the other team. I don't care how bad they are. Go into the game with the mindset that the other team's better than us, and the only way we're going to beat them is by working hard.
Outworking them.
And, there's the quote, something like, talent or hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I try to teach them in not as many words that, hey, we're not as good as them. So don't think that we're good and we're just going to get the win because we're better than them. We're going to have to work hard. That's the only way we're going to win. And trying to teach that to teenage boys and get it to stick. I don't know that it's sticking, but hopefully, someday they look back and they realize, what, coach was tough on us and he was hard on us because he saw our potential and wanted us to get better, not just because he wanted us to show up and have a good social experience and have fun with basketball.
That's awesome. Have you found other things that have been helpful recently with kids and youth losing a little bit of their grit? I'm sure, like with my own kids, I know that there's a technology impact to that. But have you found a few things that helps fight against that?
Man, not on a coaching level necessarily with my own kids. Yeah, I think giving them opportunities to test themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of winter camping, and my youngest son looks forward to that. He's like, Dad, when are we going to go set up the wall tent and shiver in single digit temperatures, wolf hunting or something, So I think providing them those opportunities to realize, hey, I can do hard things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that so many kids just don't have that. They just don't get the opportunity to fail or to be tested and realize, hey, I'm capable of doing a lot more than what I think I am. And
it's huge.
It's amazing. When you're put in situations where quitting isn't an option, you quickly realize there's not much I can't do.
Yeah.
I might not do it at a high level, or I might not do it really great, but I can do it and I can get through it and I can finish it. And once you realize that, I think it changes your outlook quite a bit.
For sure. I think it gives you a solution-based mindset too, because if you're out there and you have to figure it out, you start thinking creatively. I am cold. What should I do? I am tired. What should I do? And so you start coming up with your own solutions, and you get those critical thinking skills, which are huge.
Absolutely.
And have you found, Corey, that a lot of the principles and hard trips, hard work you've put in hunting have carried over into your business life?
Yeah, and like you mentioned at the beginning, I think it canvases everything, from business to marriage to relationships, friendships, just anything you're dealing with, anything in life. You can, if you have a no quit attitude and you've learned to be a problem solver and realize, hey, this isn't going away. I can't quit. So I've got to find a solution, and not just a solution to get me through today, but maybe a solution to make things better tomorrow. I think that applies to just about everything in life. But to directly answer your question, yeah, absolutely. When it comes to business,
Mm-hmm.
and owning your own business is, as you know, is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of things that you don't realize that you have to do and that pop up and are unexpected, and you've got to find a way to solve them. Sometimes they're short term, sometimes they're long term, and it's that mindset, though, I think helps, especially in business.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's similar to, like, if you're on the mountain in the backcountry and a huge snowstorm comes in and kind of knocks you down for a couple of days. It's really similar to when you get knocked down in business, and it hurts and you're uncomfortable and you're cold, but you got to figure it out. And the thing that I've thought a lot about too is, like, the hardest trips, the most difficult physically and mentally hunts we've ever been on are the most memorable. They stand out the most. And when we think back on those, they're the greatest hunts of our lives. It seems to be that same principle in business, where the really hard struggles that we had to fight and claw our way through are also some of the greatest moments of our business career.
Yeah, and I think that, when we think about reward in those situations, it's not necessarily the final result. Those tough hunts, it's not the size of the elk at the end. It's not you know that actual final tangible result.
Mm-hmm.
It's the growth that we experience and the strength that we gain that enables us to go and tackle it maybe a little better the next time. And I think that's what makes them memorable. The bull that I shot in Alaska was a nice bull, but it wasn't a giant. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, giant bodied, yes, but there's bigger Roosevelt bulls for sure. I don't even think about the antlers. When I think about that hunt, it's all the other things that I was able to overcome. And now I look at things that before maybe I was a little intimidated to try. And it's like, if I can do that, surely this other thing that I've been looking at's not going to be as difficult, and I can do it now. And so I think those are the fond memories we have, are the actual growth that we receive
Mm-hmm.
after we make it out the other side of a challenging situation.
Yeah, it's huge. It's like the process is always greater than the outcome. The process is everything.
And that's something I struggle with a lot, especially in hunting, is learning to enjoy the journey and not just focusing on the destination being filling a tag.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's easy to get caught up in gotta fill a tag, gotta fill a tag, gotta fill a tag today. If not today, tomorrow. I gotta fill that tag. And pretty soon the hunt's over. And whether you fill a tag or not, I think sometimes you miss out on enjoying some of that experience because you're so focused on that final outcome. With that being said, filling the tag is the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, you don't want to get down to day 8 and realize, I haven't even been packing my bow. No wonder I haven't killed an elk. We've got to be trying, but I think that there's enjoyment that can be found even in the struggle and in the journey. Rather than just the destination.
Yeah, that's a hard balance too. It's really hard in hunting, and it's really hard in business. It's tough with your kids too, because you're always looking for these big milestone moments, and you lose track of the little day-to-day things that are so awesome. That's a tough one.
Yeah. 2 of my 3 have graduated high school and moved on, and my youngest is a junior, and that window is rapidly closing. And there's several times I just think back to, man, I wish they were 4.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they were 7. And I can remember when they were 4 and 7, thinking, I can't wait till they're older. These days are so tough. And for anyone out there going through a terrible 2s or 3s, or dealing with toddlers or anything, man, enjoy that, because it goes fast. And I don't want to spoil anything here, but teenage years are no fun either. So enjoy every moment, and don't just wish that it was over and the next phase was here, because each phase is special.
Oh, it goes so fast. We have a thing at our church that counts down how many weeks our daughters have left until they graduate high school. And they put the marbles in the jar depending on the kid's age. And so we were looking at my 11-year-old daughter's jar the other day, and she has like 362 weeks left until
her jar's over half full.
I'm like, holy smokes. Like 360 weeks is not much time at all.
Yeah. And it just seems, I heard people, and I still hear people say, it just seems like things are going faster than they were a year ago. They're going faster than they were 5 years ago. And it happens, the kids get older, they start getting friends. So your time with them is now being shared with their desire to be with friends. Then they get into sports, and that takes up some of their time. So your time with them's cut even further. And then they start driving, and you see them maybe at dinner time, if you're lucky, usually late at night when they get home and ask where dinner is, and you get a few minutes with them then, and then they're gone.
Yeah, it gets less and less each year. Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. Well, Corey, I did want to spend some time chatting with you about your health and fitness. I was really curious from a backcountry hunter perspective. What do you do? How have you been thinking about kind of what are your protocols and regimens around being the best possible backcountry hunter you can be from a physical training and health perspective?
Yeah. So, health, and I haven't talked a whole lot about my health journey, but 14 years ago, I got bit by a tick and got Lyme disease. And it, at that point when that happened, I was competing in triathlons. I was in undoubtedly the best shape of my life. I think I was 30, 32, 33, somewhere in there. And, just invincible. I could run a triathlon and 36 hours later do another one. And, I think a lot of it had to do with just, I really think like 32 to 35 is probably our prime for physical, and you hear people that are 23, 24, that think, oh, I'm as good as I'm ever going to get now. And then you hear people that are, 38 thinking, oh, I wish I was 30 still. 38's horrible. And then they wake up and they're 45. And so I think there's definitely a prime there. And I think I missed out on a lot of that prime dealing with Lyme disease, and I still deal with a lot of the effects of it.
Wild.
We didn't catch it early, so there was, it drug on quite a bit. A lot of medical health issues that really for 3 or 4 years were pretty uncomfortable, and kind of took a little bit of the wind out of the sails. But with that, I realized I'm not going to be able to just skate by. I'm going to have to purposefully and intentionally work at this. Yep. And, I think that maybe some of my upbringing helped with that, but I think some of that helped with the mindset as well that, man, today sucks. Today really sucks. But I've been through it enough times that tomorrow's going to be better. And if not tomorrow, there's going to be a day in the future that's going to be better. And I've just got to make it through this part right now.
Man.
And so, I went from, I was down to 164 pounds at the peak of when I was the sickest. And then I struggled to gain weight. I think the biggest thing is my body started attacking my testosterone production. So my testosterone levels right now are about 210.
Wow.
Which for a mid-40s guy is not a comfortable place to be.
That's low.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to be at 700, And there's such a difference. I mean, even between 400 and 700, I've been everywhere from 1,000 to 200, everywhere in between there. I did testosterone replacement therapy for a while until my immune system decided that that's not going to happen anymore. So I can't do injections. I can't do creams, anything like that, because my immune system attacks it and makes me super sick. The first time I found it out, I had a 103-degree fever for 10 straight days, was in the ER several times. Like, I don't know, maybe it's a virus. We don't know what's going
That's
on.
wild.
And after the third time of trying to get testosterone into my body, realized that's what's causing the reaction. So
That's wild.
with that being said, it's hard to gain muscle. It's hard to lose fat. It's hard to get motivation. There's a lot of a benefit from having good levels of testosterone, and without it, it creates a lot of challenges. So
that's wild.
So my current, I work out every day. I've got a home gym, so it makes it nice. But the thing I can't do is I can't push myself like I used to be able to. Just physically, if I do that, my body will crash. And instead of taking 2 days to recover, it'll take 4 weeks to recover. And during that time, I've realized during that downtime, I lose too much. And it's better to just say, hey, I'm going to go out and go through the motions today and try to gain a little bit without pushing hard enough to really gain. So it's been more of a long play rather than, hey, I'm going to go hit the gym for 3 months and work really hard and get in elk country shape. Now I've got to do it year round. And hopefully I'm a little stronger in September than I was last September.
It's all about that consistency, kind of at that moderate level.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't, cardio is something I struggle with. I really just have to rely on my time in the field to gain the cardio that I need. Because if I try to, get on the treadmill, I'm good for about a half mile, maybe a mile. But then I can feel my body saying, hey, this is taking a little bit more energy than what we're able to produce right now. And if you keep pushing through this, there's going to be long-term effects. So I can push a little bit, but then, the next day muscles don't recover quite as quickly and I have to back off a little.
Was that a Idaho tick that bit you?
It was. Geez. And that was kind of some of the issue was I went to the ER. My heart rate was at 160 and wouldn't come down. I thought I was having a heart attack. I was like, what is going on? Everything was spinning. I was dizzy. And this is 3 weeks after I did a triathlon. So I'm in, peak shape.
Yeah.
And actually it happened out elk hunting and ended up in the ER. And they said, well, we think you're probably dehydrated or maybe you've got a virus or something. And so they gave me some fluids and sent me home. And 2 days later, I was back in the ER with a bunch of unexplained symptoms. And that started just a litany of visits to cardiologists and pulmonologists and functional medicine and internal medicine. And just anything you can imagine, just trying to find what's the root cause of this. I know something's not right. And every visit, including the very first ER visit, I told the doctor, I got bit by a tick today. Any chance that this is related? And everyone are like, that's only back in New Hampshire. That's the only place that you have to worry about Lyme disease.
Yeah,
and,
east of the Mississippi is what I always heard.
Yeah. So 4 months later, we and the other problem is Lyme disease. The testing for it is very inaccurate, and so the test that we did do came back negative. And they're like, see, it's not Lyme disease; it's something else. And they're looking at all these obscure diseases and not focusing on, hey, as an engineer myself and a problem solver, this is what changed and this is when it changed. Let's really, investigate this maybe and see. And it was about, I think 3 months after I got bit before we said, hey, let's send this off to a specialty lab and see if maybe there is a little more to it. And it came back that I think 6 of the 8 markers were positive for Lyme disease. The CDC only needs 2 of the markers to be positive to recognize it as a positive case. And so kind of confirmed, which is always good to get at least an answer. But at that point, damage had been done and a quick round of antibiotics wasn't going to cut it and kill it. So,
because there is a way to catch it fast.
Yeah, if you catch it in the first, and I don't know if it's 28 days or what the reproduction cycle of the actual spirochete is, but if you catch it in that first bit, uh, 14 or 21 day cycle of doxycycline antibiotics will usually, I don't know what the percentage is, but high percentage of the time it'll
Knock it out.
get rid of it and won't be any long-term effects.
Man, that is wild. Did you have to kind of revamp your nutrition side as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm still, still working on that, but where you can't work out and you can't push yourself and you have testosterone levels that are plummeting. Yeah. It's becomes a continual game of watching your weight
Mm.
and managing weight, not just from I'm overweight standpoint, but am I getting the calories that I need? Am I, is the protein and carb ratio good for what I need to be able to recognize some gains? And
Hmm.
if I had high levels of testosterone, was able to work out hard, it would probably be considerably different.
It's very fascinating from a high level where you and Randy Newberg both have these huge kind of health battles that you're overcoming as guys that are elk hunting all the time. I know, he has his liver issue, which is limiting him to that 40 grams of protein a day. And then he also has a similar issue where because of that, he can't really exert himself without crashing and
Yeah,
burning for too long. It's it's interesting that both of you kind of have like faced that and worked through it, and through consistency found a way to kind of still pursue your dreams even though you've had those limiting factors.
totally. Yeah. And it's, I've always been a very problem solving oriented person that, hey, there's a problem here. There's got to be a solution. Let's figure it out. And I think that's been one of the most frustrating things to have to learn to deal with is there may not be a solution. There are a bunch of little solutions that allow you to maintain, but there's not
Mm,
a cure.
yeah.
That there's not a thing that's going to get you over this and get you back to normal. This is the new normal, and we just have to adapt to that and do the best we can daily. And like I said, there's still incredibly rough days from a fatigue standpoint. Brain fog is probably one of the worst things that I deal with. Just not being able to see clearly, to think clearly, which has always been kind of my, you get in a situation. I've always thought I can tackle any situation, bring it on. I can find a solution. And now it's like, man, I'm a little bit intimidated by the thought of some of these things happening because I don't think quickly and I don't solve problems clearly like I think I should.
Hmm.
And so as a business owner, you know, that's
Yeah.
frustrating to realize that today is not the day I'm going to be writing this article, or no, we aren't filming this today because I can't think clearly enough to be able to formulate the thoughts that I want to be able to share.
Yeah. I do love, Corey, though, that uh, this is one of my favorite theories around mental toughness. Is a lot of people think about mental toughness and they think about a professional athlete, or they think about some amazing event, usually in sports. But one of our great friends told us like true mental toughness is really not letting anything in life bring you down. So our friend was talking about his father and how his father was a sheep farmer and they'd been through plagues, famines, droughts. They lost most of their herd. They lost their business a few times, but he always thought about his father, that like regardless of like health or financial circumstances, you just couldn't bring that guy down. And like you're doing a phenomenal job from that standpoint of like Lyme's disease is a big deal, but you're still not letting it bring your morale down. You're still an optimistic, happy man. And that is like a true kind of testament of your mindset, which is awesome.
Well, it helps to be able to, in today's world of digital media, I can pick the days that are better and put on a good face for those days. But, it really goes back to, I can't quit. Quitting's not an option. So
Yep.
gotta find a way to make today the best it can be and set tomorrow up to be as good as it can be. And some days you wake up and things aren't as good as you want, but like I said, that promise that tomorrow's a new day and maybe it'll be better. So let's do what we can today and wake up tomorrow hoping it's better.
I love that. Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Corey. I do want to be respectful of your time. I know you got a lot going on, but before we wrap up, I was curious what's going on with Destination Elk this year. When are those going to come out, and what can folks look for this year, and where can they find it?
Yeah, it's almost reaching a fever pitch. A lot of other people are asking the same question, and it's funny. This is our 6th season of Destination Elk, which is our elk hunting video series that we put out on the Elk 101 YouTube channel, and we do it later than most people start their elk hunting series in November and run them till about now. And we just found that with the cabin fever and timing and everything, we mid to late January is kind of when we launched that. But every year we get comments and messages and emails. When's it happening? Did I miss it? Why are you guys so late this year? And so we're launching January 23rd is the launch of episode 1. And then we'll have a new episode every Tuesday and Thursday on the Elk 101 YouTube channel through about mid-March. And basically it just goes along, follows Donnie and I on our adventures from our entire elk season. Got some cool stuff. I was able to surprise Donnie with a tag that he's always dreamed of, and we had to use Randy Newberg in kind of fabricating a story to get Donnie to get to the spot where we needed him and bring his bow.
Oh man!
Without realizing he was going to be hunting elk. So that was a fun surprise. And then my oldest son drew an incredible archery elk tag in the leftover draw here in Idaho. So we got to spend a week hunting together and got to see some incredible elk hunting action and rut action. And then we always do the Outfitter for Hope hunt, where we get to spend a week with a youth with a life-threatening illness and hunt elk with them. And that was absolutely incredible again this year. So
amazing.
Some really cool stuff. And then of course, Donnie and I with our normal rifle and archery hunts here in Idaho had a good time. So we're excited to launch that. And we've got, in addition to people always asking, when's it going to launch? When's it going to launch? Every year they're like, we can't get enough of this. Why do we have to wait until next Thursday? So we've teamed up with Randy over on his Fresh Tracks Plus platform, and we are loading all of the episodes there. So they're available to binge watch, so people can stream every episode of the season from the launch if they want to go over there and check it out at Fresh Tracks Plus.
So Fresh Tracks Plus or Elk 101 YouTube are the two main channels.
Yep, those are the two places where people can catch the episodes.
That sounds amazing. And I'm assuming you got some big trips planned for this year as well, upcoming.
We do. We're doing something that I've never seen done before in the hunting industry for Destination Elk V7.
Nice.
So we've got some really cool stuff, but talk about mental toughness and what it's going to show. We're going to be tapping into and testing people's mental toughness this season for sure.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Corey. I appreciate you being here. It's an honor. We'll always love hearing from you and appreciate everything you've done for the industry. It's amazing.
I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity and excited for what you guys are doing over there as well.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks for listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. That was a phenomenal, profound conversation with Corey. I hope you took a ton from that. I know I personally did. I have never heard that story from Corey yet about him overcoming Lyme's disease to do what he does. That is insane. The amount of world-class elk hunting on public land that Corey is doing, and he's adapting around that limitation of Lyme's disease. in his health, in his training, to still do what he does and not let that slow him down is amazing. If you want to learn more about Corey, you can follow him on Instagram at CoreyJacobson.elk101. Thanks for listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. We are so glad that you are here. Make sure you leave us a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out on YouTube at Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. Stay dangerous, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. We'll see you next week.